That's a good transition. The other big argument, because it impacts all these lawsuits pending, is there was confusion this week about exactly what the FDA actually did. So on Monday, the FDA issued a biologic license approval to biotech for the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine that they said was medically interchangeable with the existing emergency use authorized vaccine. But then they did something weird. They then also continued and extended the emergency use authorization for the Pfizer vaccine and for the Moderna vaccine, and I believe the J&J vaccine. And that confused people because under the emergency use authorization law, you have to revoke emergency use authorization the moment you have an FDA approved biologic license for treatment of that disease. So everybody's like, what the heck is this? So you had to dig in, and it was basically, it reminded me of an old Huey Long story of High Papa Lorem and Low Papa Hiram. So Huey Long told the story that there was a snake oil salesman that traveled Louisiana, and he had one product that cured half of your illnesses, and he had another product that cured the other half of your illnesses. And one was called High Papa Lorem, and the other was called Low Papa Hiram. And somebody asked this salesman, well, how do you make those? And he said, oh, you make this one from the bark off the tree. You make it from tree bark. And they're like, well, how do you make the other one? Oh, you make that one from tree bark too. And they're like, well, what in the world's the difference? Oh, big difference, the snake oil salesman described. J.P. Rockefeller's granddaddy was a snake oil salesman, by the way, literally. Maybe, and he's involved in a lot of this stuff these days if you dig in the Rockefeller Foundation. But basically he said, well, this one here, the High Papa Lorem, you make by skinning the bark off the tree from the bottom up. He goes, the other one, totally different. Low Papa Hiram, you make from skinning the bark off the tree from the top down. And Huey Long applied it to the political context of the day. He said the only difference when I got to Washington between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party is one of them wants to skin you from the ankle up, and the other one wants to skin you from the ear down. So but this is basically what the FDA has done. They're saying, yeah, we've approved this vaccine over here, but it's not widely available. You're like, what are you talking about? It's the same one that's out. You just said it's medically interchangeable with the one they're giving right now. And they're like, well, no, but it doesn't have the label on it, you see. It doesn't have the label. And if you know FDA's, so it's literally Low Papa Hiram, High Papa Lorem. Yeah, they're the same, but they're totally different. Now, legally, they are very different because legally, one of them isn't subject to emergency use authorization informed consent rules. One of the FDA approved vaccine doesn't have the same clear legal requirements that an emergency use authorization does. Also, for Pfizer's purposes, there is clearly no liability for the emergency use authorized vaccine. It's not clear if there's no liability for the approved one. So Pfizer doesn't want their approved one out. They want the emergency use authorized one out.
Or they just want to suck and blow at the same time, and they want to carve the tree from both ends and make the most of it and not be held to any sort of ability.
And Moderna and J&J don't want the only one to be out as Pfizer's. So the game the FDA played was the military and employers for mandates. They want to pretend that what they're mandating is the FDA approved one, so they don't have to deal with the emergency use authorization statute and whether that limits informed consent as a precondition. I personally think informed consent is required across the board. It's just legally, there's a stronger argument with EUA than there is with biological licensed ones. But to me, the argument should be identical. But that's the legal. So they played it. It was a bait and switch. They made it look like that they had approved the FDA one and that the FDA had approved one and that that's the one that would be mandated. But the one being mandated right now cannot be that one because according to the FDA, that one's not widely available at the moment.
All right, that is I'm going to have to go back and listen to this to make sure I understood it because it sounds like chicanery. If I do say so myself, I was reading your tweets on it earlier. Yeah,